Blessings. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today we're in Luke chapters 11 through 13, and we started in Luke chapter 11, verse 37. Jesus takes the opportunity here to tell the truth. Not that Jesus would never not tell the truth, but he tells the truth, the underlying truth about cleanliness and what it means to actually be clean. The Pharisees had a warped definition of what clean and unclean was. And he tells them, you guys are worried about the outside of the cup, but it's the inside of the cup that matters. Um, Jesus tells them it's not what goes into a mouth, into a person that makes him unclean, but what comes out that makes him unclean. And he basically gets to the point where he tells the Pharisees, and he's kind of harsh about this, they are the very stumbling blocks that we spoke of yesterday. It said the last thing you want to do is be a stumbling block. So he's taking advantage of a teachable moment and hoping that they get it and understand. And then in chapter 12, Jesus again points out to the Pharisees and the lawyers that they look clean on the outside, but the inside they too are unclean. And they think they can hide their thoughts, their feelings, their anger from God and everybody else by putting on this good front and make the outside look all pretty. But inwardly, they're dirty and full of anger and greed and unforgiveness. That's a big point. Inside, they don't have humility. They have this outward pride and arrogance about them. And Jesus takes this lesson and he points it out to his disciples and teaches them, look, don't be like the Pharisees. Do not, and at that time it was a great lesson because the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the lawyers, they were the upper echelon of society. And that's what people, that's what you would strive to be. I want to be a Pharisee one day. I want to be, and Jesus is saying, don't look up to them. Don't try to be like them. They've got it backwards and they don't understand. So Jesus is telling truth throughout this. Well, he always tells truth throughout all of his teachings. 12:4 and 5, God sees the inside of a person. You cannot hide your thoughts, your feelings again, even your unforgiveness. That's got to, that makes you unclean inside, unforgiveness. Plus, it's like a poison that eats you up from the inside out. Verse 11, Jesus will give assurances that when you face trials and tribulations, that you will not be alone. The Holy Spirit will be with you. You can count on that. And you have to listen to him. Jesus says he will teach you in that very hour. So when you see the trial coming or the trouble coming, start listening for the Holy Spirit to speak to you. And I don't mean an audible voice. I mean just open your mind to what God may have for you during those moments. Because Jesus says, for the Holy Spirit will teach you in that very hour what you ought to say. Okay, those aren't my words. That's the words of Jesus Christ. 12:14, going back to the woman who was caught in adultery. Remember we talked about Jesus did not use the law and judge her because that wasn't his purpose for being here. Well, we see this guy coming up to him and saying, Jesus, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. And Jesus is like, that's not what I'm here for. You're missing the whole point. I'm not here about the outside of the cup. I'm here for the inside of the cup. I'm not here for your possessions and all your earthly stuff. I'm here for your soul, and I'm here to teach you the way of salvation. That's Jesus's point. That's what he's here for, not the outside of the cup. Um, he's here for the inside, for the spirit, not the flesh. And then verse 35 says, don't grow content like the man in the previous parable, the guy that we saw that just stored up all his stuff. He was very arrogant and prideful. He said, what shall I do with all this food? I'll just store it up for myself and then I'll just kick back and relax. He was satisfied with the outside of the cup. He was satisfied with the external things, and he didn't share. He just kind of hoarded his own stuff. There's poor and needy that could have used it, but He had more than he would ever need. He had so much that his barns were full and he was going to tear them down and build new ones. Don't grow content. You have work to do. And urgent work. And we talked about that a little bit yesterday. 12:40, be ready, because the Son of Man may come back at an hour that we don't expect him. And that's a lot of this previous parable. The guy is just going to kick back and relax. No, Jesus says, man, we got work to do, and he may come back at any moment. We need that sense of urgency. And then I love this, 12:49, and it says, I have come to cast fire upon the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. Now, used to, when I read that, I was like, fire, oh, he's talking about judgment. I think he's talking about the fire like is described in Acts, when the Holy Spirit came down like tongues of fire and was on the people. Jesus says when he leaves, the Holy Spirit will come. And I think for that very reason, Jesus goes into this next part saying that when he comes to divide people, mother against daughter and son against father. And what that is, at this point, Jesus is pre-Jesus, there's no Holy Spirit except for in very rare and specific instances. But the Holy Spirit wasn't just given to everyone that believed. Well, the Holy Spirit and people without the Holy Spirit is what divides us. I mean, that's the difference between good and evil. That's the difference between salvation and hell. That's the difference between Christ follower and antichrist. There is an absolute line drawn in the sand. And when Jesus comes and back and he says, Father will be divided against Son. One's got the Holy Spirit, one doesn't. That's truly the way all this lines up. That's how I read that. That's my interpretation of it. But anyway, it was a fantastic read. I hope you read. Tomorrow we're going to be in John chapter 9 and 10. Just 9 and 10. All of chapter 9 and all of chapter 10. Not part of it, just the whole thing. So read ahead, come back here. See you tomorrow, and you guys be safe.